When I spoke about pilgrimage, I spoke about churches developing and taking those donations from the pilgrims that would spend the night there and then using them to expand the church. And that's exactly what happens at St. Sernin. Now, just a reminder, because we're getting into more and more church architecture, especially for the next two chapters, so I want to go over our terms again. Out here, what would be termed the lobby today would be the narthex. It's really a transitional zone from the secular, the profane, the outside world, into the sacred, into the church. And then we would have a nave in the center. At St. Sernin, we have a double aisle, but at least we always have an aisle. We see the use of the transepts, the crossing, which is usually where you see the altar. This is where the transepts intersect the nave. Everything behind the crossing is termed the choir or the apse, depending on what you're looking at. And then we have a series of radiating chapels as well as the use of an ambulatory around the church. Now, this is a little more complicated, and you'll notice that this one takes on the form of a cross. This is called a cruciform plan church. And this was on the stop to Santiago de Compostela, which was a major pilgrimage site. So there is not a major relic at St. Sernin, but it is along the path that most pilgrims take to get to another pilgrimage site. And what we see is something called a pilgrimage plan. So that double aisle means that I can put more people in there to rest at night on their travels. I can fit more people in. It creates a church of grand scale. So from the outside, it looks typically Romanesque. It's made up of its parts. We don't see a lot of sculpture. We don't see a lot of architectural embellishment. We see stone vaults, stone construction. And inside, as I said, stone vaults. And that ceiling, instead of being wood, in this case, is a large stone barrel vault. A barrel vault is simply an arch that has been stretched, almost like a slinky, to create a form that is quite strong. Although it is also quite heavy. We're going to see that roof change as we move through the Romanesque and through the Gothic. They also go ahead and add the transept, which we didn't see at Saint Etienne. Again, creating that cruciform plan that we're used to. We see more radiating chapels. In fact, they actually come off not just the apse at the end here, the choir and the apse, but we actually see them coming off the transept arms as well. This whole thing also increases the length of the nave, again, fitting more people in. We do see the use of a gallery, this upper story that is available to people. Oftentimes, they would put, for example, women up there, etc. And what you're seeing here is we have, if I can get to the pen tool, here we go. We have the clerestory up here, so that's just windows. And then behind here, you would actually see a gallery if I was looking in. So that upper story is available to them. This is all to provide additional space for pilgrims, and it's quite a common feature that we will see in many of these churches. We see a structure that is very geometric. They're interested in the use of ratios throughout the construction. They're also going to try and use sacred numbers. Numbers like 2, 3, 7, 12, 40, etc. to make it more perfect, to make it a greater gift to God, a better house to God, which makes a lot of sense. The galleries themselves are there for a purpose. They actually help buttress the stone for the barrel vault. Now, when we look at architecture, any kind of roof requires that that weight be taken to the ground. And so by using the gallery, it widens the structure and allows for that weight to pass down through this roof line and eventually down through these walls. Now, obviously, there are limits because these walls are vertical. That's why we're going to get the use of buttresses later on. We also see in sections, primarily over the aisle, the use of groin vaults. Now, groin vaults will help absorb pressure exerted by the barrel vault, that large vault in the middle of the church. And a groin vault is simply two barrel vaults intersected. They are lighter, they're stronger than a barrel vault, and these will become more and more common. Of course, we see these changes. So moving from the barrel vault, very, very Romanesque, to the groin vault. And you see you use less material for a groin vault. And by using that intersection between the two barrel vaults, you get a structure that's going to be stronger. This will evolve later into a rib vault, which we're going to see in the late Romanesque and early Gothic. We also see the use of engaged columns. Now, an engaged column is simply a column like we see here, for example. We see this column. And those upper columns are there to really embellish the architecture. This is the beginning of architectural aesthetics, of trying to do things that are going to beautify the structure that don't actually have structural purpose. Those columns don't need to be there. You could strip them off and the structure would be perfectly fine. But they do produce a great sense of verticality, drawing your eye up. And they're going to do that here, just like in the Gothic later on. Because when you look up, hopefully you're thinking about things above. In other words, spirituality, the heavens, God, etc. So this verticality is meant to connect the structure, make it look like a complete whole, but also has that symbolic meaning of drawing your eye to God.